Hello, everybody. My name is Crystal Delahue from Detroit, Michigan. Today, I'll be reviewing ABC's Women on the Movement about Emmett Till and Mamie Till Mobley. Honey, when I tell you that Adrienne Warren is about to get all of her things, I mean that. I had the pleasure of seeing Adrienne on Halloween at her last performance as Tina Turner on Broadway, and I was blown away. And I just thought, I don't think she could have done anything better than that. Like, you're playing Tina Turner on Broadway, she's singing, she's dancing, she's doing fight choreography, all for 2 hours and 45 minutes. I thought, what else could she possibly do? And this woman has done it. She's Mamie Till Mobley. She transformed her body, she embodied her spirit. Um, I always tell people there's something special when Broadway stars cross over to television. It's a certain swag they have, discipline. They command the screen because in Broadway and on the stage, you have to act for thousands of people. But on screen, it's just, you just have to act for that one lens, that one person. And she did that masterfully. So what I'm going to do is just try to review it because it really stuck with me. What I saw last night is 6 episodes over a 3-week time period. So each week we watched 2 hours. And when I tell you that Twitter was on fire, I couldn't sleep after because I was just so inspired and heartbroken by what happened to this young boy. So first I'm going to start off with the cast. Women on the Movement, is created by Marissa Joe. It stars Adrienne Warren, who's Mamie Till Mobley, Tanya Pinkes, who is Alma Carthen, who plays Mamie's mother and Emmett Till's grandmother, Cedric Joe, who plays Emmett Till, who did a masterful job, looked very similar too, it was very eerie. Glenn Turman, who played Uncle Mo's right. Ray Fisher, who's beautiful, he played Gene Mobley, who turned out to be Mamie's husband, and Leslie Silva, who was Ruby Hurley, who was a civil rights attorney from the NAACP. The episodes, like I said before, were 6 episodes. And I'm just going to break them down one by one. I'm not going to take too much of your time. Of course, as this is my first video, I'm a little nervous, but just bear with me. So the first episode is called Mother and Son, and it was directed by Gina Prince, Bythewood, who did Love and Basketball, classic. And basically what I loved about this episode is that it started with Black maternity at that time period. We see Mamie in the hospital in labor with Emmett, and we see that it's not an easy pregnancy. A lot of our pregnancies are not, as the data will show. But she gave birth to a great kid and everything. It turned out that he had polio in his childhood, which caused his stutter, which I didn't know growing up. One thing I did love about this series is that it highlighted Emmett as a young boy and not as a victim. We see him become a victim, but it started off as the 14-year-old, beautiful brown-eyed young boy from Chicago that had some swag, right? He always looked nice and dressed from Chicago, had that swag. And he was just like every other little boy, right? Fun, confident. I thought that was cool to know because I didn't know that growing up when I heard the story. He was a very confident boy. Even though he, had a stutter, it was just like he still was just normal and fun and just, he was loved. You could tell the love in the family. So I kind of call this episode, well, before, what ultimately happens in Mississippi, Black Joy, because we see this family just have a good time, right? We see a mother and son just loving each other and just wanting to be a good family. You have the grandmother that helps out with Emmett. They're sitting around the dinner table and just having this wonderful dinner. And then Uncle Mose, offers Emmett to come down to Mississippi and kick it with his cousins, right? And most of us are like, who wouldn't? but it's the South, honey. It's the South. And Mamie is very, she doesn't want him to go. And rightfully so, it's the South, right? It ain't Chicago. It's not up north where he's free and kicking it with his friends. It's the South where she has to talk to him about how to be around white people. And I immediately tweeted in the moment after the, when she has to talk with him, and then the train station talk, when you see a white man, if you so happen to brush by him, get off the sidewalk, look down, never in his eye, so you don't look like a threat. Yes, say, always say yes, sir, and it's not out of just respect, it's out of fear. And it's the same parallels that I think Black mothers have with their Black sons these days when interacting with police. If you get pulled over, always keep your hands in visible sight. Keep your hands on the wheel if you can, but make sure they're visible. Make sure you don't reach for anything. If you do, say what you're reaching for. Turn your music down, Don't have any tint on your car so they don't think you're hiding something. It's those type of things that Black mothers have to tell their Black sons and Black daughters in this day and age when they're interacting with police. So it's like, even though that was the 50s, not much has changed, because the parallels from Mamie telling Emmett what to do to go down to Mississippi to survive is the same thing that my friends that have Black children, that they have to have with their Black children. And that's really sad. But I enjoyed the peek inside of that, the talk before the trip. So of course we see him go and he's so excited. He leaves behind his watch, that his mother kept, of course. He gets down there and we see the joy that he has with his cousins. He's swimming and he's just having a good time. But what I liked, another thing I liked that they captured, was Mamie having girls' night, right? We have girls' night. I love girls' night. I love my friends, right? But Mamie is sitting there because she's still worried. She has the photo book album and her friends are like, we ain't come over here for that. We came over here to have girls' night. We got our drinks. We got the music. Let's get it. And, and it's so funny because she's like, oh, I'm going to tell you this other story. And they're like, oh, girl, okay. And and then she's like, okay, fine, and she puts it up and then she turns on the music and we see Mamie have a girl's moment, right? I even tweeted, I was like, Mamie in her two-step, she had her drink. What y'all think was in that cup? I want to know what Mamie was drinking. Was she drinking gin? Scotch? Whiskey? What were you drinking, Mamie? I want to know, because I don't think you were a vodka girl. I'm a vodka girl. But I think Mamie might have been on some bourbon, maybe. Were you on that bourbon, Mamie? I don't know, but you look like you just were having a good time with your homegirls. Y'all dancing in the living room, just having a good time. And that's what I loved about this episode, is like we saw Black joy before the tragedy that we know are going to come. Who were these people before the tragedy? Mamie was a normal woman who had a 6-bedroom apartment. First of all, she had 6 bedrooms in her apartment. Get money, Mamie. Mamie got some money. She was up in Chicago with 6 bedrooms in that apartment. Nice house, right? She was dressed, honey. She had swag, she had style. Emmett was stylish. And she had her girls' night. And then, can't have too much joy. And then, of course, we know what happens. The next morning, she gets a call. So in Mississippi, the uncle, Mose tells them, do not go into town. But what do we do as kids, right? We don't listen to our adults. We don't listen to our figures. We go because we're like, I'm going. We're about to go to the store. We're about to eat some candy. We're about to have a good time. Oh, I wish they didn't go into that town. Oh, I wish they didn't, but they did. And, in the show, they showed that people were kind of putting Emmett up to this because he was so confident and swaggy. Go on and talk to that woman. And he goes in there and he's smiling. He doesn't look down, which is, disrespectful in their eyes. What are you looking at me for? boy, that whole thing. And she feels threatened. That's not a shocker, right? Same thing happening now. We can't bird watch. We can't do anything. They feel threatened. So then she goes out. She gets her gun to scare them off. But you can see the fear in his eyes. He's like, oh, I was just kidding. No, no. And then the whistle, I'll talk about later. But there was a whistle, but we know later why there was a whistle. It wasn't at her, So then she goes, gets the gun out, and then she goes home and lies to the husband. And of course, as testosterone, he feels threatened. He's like, we're not about to let this boy come into our town and do all this. So we're going to make an example out of him. So that night, Emmett and his cousins, they go downtown to have a good time. But this black man, which, I didn't know this, like sought them out type of thing. And I think he ended up snitching to the white man that came to the house later. And then later on, you see the knock at the door. And they come in and Uncle Mose has to let them in because they got guns. And in his world, it's either my sons or Emmett. And in his heart of hearts, I think he really believed that they was going to bring him back. I was like, they're not going to bring him back. You know this. They came riled up on liquor and hatred. They weren't bringing this boy back. They took him in the truck, and that's the last time they saw young Emmett Till alive. And then, of course, he has to make the phone call to Mamie, and she's heartbroken, of course. Like, what do you mean some white man took him? What does that mean? Where is he at? Nobody knows nothing. Nobody knows nothing. And then in the second episode, we move, that's called Only Skin, where she gets, she's hell bent on finding her kid, as she should. They're asking around the town, but don't nobody know nothing in Nino Brown's voice. Don't nobody know nothing? Don't nobody know nothing. They pull up to the guys that took him, and they say, oh yeah, we took him, but we let him go. You lying. We let him go. We let him out on the road. And poor Mamie had so much hope. That's what broke my heart too, because she was so hopeful. She was thinking that her baby boy was maybe let out and he's just trying to find his way back. Sorry, Mamie. Sorry. That hope is a dangerous thing to me. Like, one thing about her mother is I feel like Alma knew. But Mamie had so much hope, but Alma was like, he gone. White man don't come in the middle of the night, take a young black boy, and all of a sudden he's going to turn up. No. And that was heartbreaking because Mamie really was like, there's still a chance we can find him. So she gets involved with the NAACP, and that's something I didn't know growing up. I knew that they got involved, of course, after they found him in the condition, but I didn't know she got involved with them trying to just find him. And I love that it was kind of like a moment of solidarity between Black folk. Like, we gonna find this boy, period. Good or bad, we're gonna find him. She needs closure. And, 3 days later, unfortunately, 3 days, they found him in the Chattahoochee River, maimed, beaten, shot in the head, hung, just evil things happened to this young boy. And poor Uncle Mose had to identify the body and had the ring on the finger, and he knew that was his nephew. And then they got to make that call. Another call to Mamie, like, we found him. It's not good, And that's the unfortunate thing. And then, of course, next, we have let the people see. Because Mississippi tried to bury this story. Ha! Just like now, when something happens, it never happened. Nope, let's cover it up. What way can we cover this up? What way? They said, if this happened here, we're gonna bury him right now. We're not gonna wait on his mama. We're not gonna wait on anybody. We're gonna put this boy in the ground. This never happened. It did happen. And I'm so grateful for a woman like Mamie to have the courage to say, bring my baby home. I don't care what it costs. First of all, Mamie has some dollars, because I want to know what it cost to ship him from Mississippi to Chicago. Mamie had some dollars. I mean, she had a 6-bedroom apartment in Chicago. I should know that, right? But Mamie said, I don't care what it costs. I want my boy home. And rightfully so. That's how you get closure. Y'all was really gonna bury this young boy in Mississippi, somewhere that he wasn't from, before his mother could get closure? Wow. Wow for the cover up. Familiar, right? Familiar. So she does all of this, and she finally gets him. And oh my goodness, when I tell you, I never saw that casket photo until, the show did the side-by-side on Twitter. I never saw the Mamie in the casket being brought off the train photo. That photo is heartbreaking. I'm not a mom, but I could only imagine, like, you saw your baby boy this way, and then you get a call, he's missing, and then now you confirm that he's dead. And wow. And they knew they had to have a feeling, so they wheeled her out in a wheelchair to the train. And you could see the anxiety, right? They open up the train and you see the casket, and Mamie loses it. Oh, baby, when I tell you, in the beginning, I was like, I'm not gonna cry, because I know the story, but I thought I knew the story. Honey, I don't know the story. Clearly, I didn't know the story. Adrienne Warren broke my heart when she did that casket scene. And it was just identical to the real photo. Broke my heart. If that scene alone don't get her an Emmy, we gonna have a discussion, but I'll get to that later. That scene was so powerful. And then the men telling her, we can't let you see him like this. Like, he has been brutalized, like, and not just a whipping, like, he's been brutalized. She said, no, I need to see my baby, because I want to make sure it's him, because Mississippi at the time is trying to say, that ain't Emmett, that's just some other random dude. No. She know her son. So she said, I want to see him. So we get to the mortuary, and the undertaker lets her see him. And that tore me up too, because she touched his feet and she saw the slits in his legs of him just brutalized. Like, really? That's what y'all did to my baby? For what? The hatred in your heart. You had that much hatred in your heart for my baby that you did that to him? Wow. And then she comes out and she makes the decision that only a strong woman makes. Let the world see. Let the people see. That was the name of this, the third episode. Let the people see. And they was like, what? If you reacted like this, what they gonna do? His friends, the rest of the family. She said, let them see my boy. I want them to see what they did to my boy. Wow. And they let her do it. They let her do it. And I'm grateful that they did, because I feel like if the Undertaker, like he said, like, please let me like just fix him up just nice, I don't think it would have had that. It would have had an impact still, but it wouldn't have been that much of an impact, because it's something about seeing the brutalization of a 14-year-old boy. Like, we knew Emmett as this. Imagine his friends coming. They showed the children. I read an article about that saying that children were there. And I wondered, like, wow, would that have been too much for me if I had saw like one of my childhood friends? Would my mother have let me go on? Probably not. I don't know. But I thought that was powerful to let children in to see their friend. Like, before he left, he was this. But these evil people did this to him. Wow. And then, of course, they had the woman fall out in front of Mamie, and I'm like, oh my goodness. How many times did Mamie have to relive this over and over? But she did it for justice. She did it, I hate to say it, for us, for the generations to come. She didn't know she was, I think, in the moment making us, this activist statement, but like she just wanted the world to see and share her story. But that started the movement. That started the civil rights movement. And I just want to tip my hat to her, because without that, I don't know where we would have been. I know it would have still happened, but that was the kickoff. To see this young 14-year-old boy go somewhere to visit his family and not return home, and in the manner that they murdered him. Pure evil over a lie, by the way. So after the funeral, she's cooking and everything, and Alma tells her, like, you haven't grieved, baby. She like, I ain't got time. I've gotta cook. NAACP has helped us so much. The neighborhood. I've got to cook. I've got to stay busy, right? That's what we do when we really don't want to feel or really just grieve. You stay busy. And that's what Mamie was doing, because she knew she had an objective. Like, these men gonna pay for this, or we got to do something. We got to get a trial. We got to do something. So it's like, if she stopped, boom, then she fell apart. So she's like, oh no, 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 no. So I get that. But her mother was still just concerned, like, you gotta grieve. You have to. You have to. So because of this funeral, it was in the papers, and Jet magazine posted a photo of his, of his face, as they say, like he looked like a monster, See this 14-year-old boy go from this handsome little boy to like, then it got worldwide coverage. And now Mississippi has no choice but to indict these two savages for what they did. Carolyn should have been indicted too, but we'll talk about that. So they indict. And Alma didn't believe they would indict, because it's state of Mississippi. And I get it. Like, it's the South, honey. They don't care. But guess what? They indicted because of public outrage. It's kind of like these days when they say like cancel culture or whatever. Like, oh, if it's public, oh, now we're going to get an uproar. That was back then. Without her doing that public viewing and having the open casket and showing what they did to him, no charges would have been filed. And we all know that. Mamie did that for her baby and for the world. Thank you, Mamie. So they indict, but that's not good enough. Of course not. So then the fourth episode is Manhunt. That's when the trial began. And everything is being said, And what I learned in that trial, first of all, the jury was, of course, all white men. If that was any indication of what the outcome was going to be, that was it. They're not going to convict their own, of course, but just the white privilege of it all. One episode, I believe it was in maybe Mothers and Sons, one of the gentlemen was drinking a Coke. You were on trial for murder, and he's just chilling, drinking a Coke. Meanwhile, Mamie and her team in the NAACP have to sit in the corner in this humid courtroom. Y'all got no fans or nothing for Mamie? And Mamie came dressed, honey. She came to Mississippi dressed. She had on the fashions in the 50s, honey. Had her glasses, had her hat, different black dresses every day. Mother was sharp. And y'all put her in this hot, humid, but her hair didn't turn. Thank God for Jesus, honey. Mamie withstood that humidity for her boy. And then I want to shout out the woman, Ruby Hurley, who was in the NAACP. During, this manhunt and the trial and everything, how her and some other NAACP members went undercover as sharecroppers and went on to find the witnesses. Bravo to y'all, because that is dangerous. You're in Mississippi and you're posing as a sharecropper, and these other witnesses are scared to death, literally, because they know what might happen. A whipping is the least of their concerns. Like they could be dead. But Ruby convinced them, like, come on, y'all know y'all saw something. Y'all saw that young black boy in the back of that truck. And then, I believe his name was Willie. He heard screams and wailing from the shed from being whipped. Come on, please do it for him. He was a boy. We can protect you. And I love how they did that. We can protect you. If nobody else will, we will. The NAACP, we will protect you. I love that, because as Black people, sometimes I feel like we don't have each other's back all the time. But back then, or at that time, that situation, they did. And bravo, bravo. Leslie Silva, you played Ruby, honey. I hope you get a guest star nomination or something like that. You played Miss Ruby. And I love the line, I should have wrote it down, but that you told Mamie about, because Mamie was like, I'm glad to see a woman on the job, right? And she was like, we're at the forefront of these movements. But history won't tell you that all the time, because, the men are usually the image. They're the forefront, but women are right there, honey. And I love that moment. Ruby's standing with Mamie, like, we're going to get justice. Or if we don't, at least I'm here for you. I'm here for you. So, they're in this hot courtroom. I just couldn't believe my edges were sweating, because I could feel the heat. I could just tell. Bravo to the to the cast and crew, because they really looked hot. I'm sure they weren't, but they really looked hot in that building. I was like, ooh, child. Poor Mamie's like, just give me a Coke. Give me a Coke, honey, please. And Mamie is dressed, so I know that humidity was getting to her. But her hair wasn't out of place. Makeup was fierce. Mama was beat. And that's another thing I want to say about Black women. No matter how much we suffer, no matter how much we're going through, we're going to show up fabulous, honey. I love it. You won't ever see, if we're in it, we're in the abyss, we are grieving, you won't see it on our clothes and our face, because mama's going to be beat. Mama's going to have the fashions. We'll cry behind scenes, but we're going to be fierce, honey. We're not going to let you see us sweat. I love that about us. That's that perseverance, that's that swag. I don't know where it comes from, maybe from our ancestors, but we are going to be fabulous. And Mamie showed up to court, honey, beat. I love the scene when they call her to the stand. I'm on to the next episode. That's Mothers and Son, and that's the testimony. When they call Mamie to the stand in the court, it was such a beautiful shot of the court doors opening, and Mamie's just walking, honey, and all the cameras are on her. Mama was fierce. She gets on that stand, and oh, before I talk about her testimony, when they prepped her, that prosecutor said two things that got under my skin, honey. The South is something else. He said, I have to call you Mamie. And they're going to expect to hear, yes, sir. What? Her son was the victim. But she got to call you, yes, sir. Okay. But she understood. She took it with grace, as Mamie is. She took it with grace. She was like, I understand. Me, I'm like, what? Okay, whatever. We better get a conviction if I got to call you, yes, sir. But you know what? Whatever. She had to do it. Bravo to her. And those questions weren't easy. She had to stand there and look at these savages in their face, knowing what they did to her baby boy. But she handled it with grace, of course, until he showed her, the photos, the death photos. That broke her, of course. That's heart-wrenching. That's so heart-wrenching. Then the cross-examination comes by the defense. And he tries to imply, and I don't know if y'all caught this, but I reacted to this. I was in my room like, no, he ain't trying to do this. He had the audacity to ask her about life insurance. First of all, the life insurance policy of $400. Take me back to the 1950s. What were we gonna buy, Mamie? But I get it, it was the 1950s. But that policy was, who was the beneficiary? She was like, me. What are you trying to say? That she's lying about it being her son just so she can let $400? Is that what we doing now? Oh, okay. That made me mad. That made me mad. I was not a happy camper about that. He tried Mamie. But she still didn't yell, didn't get out of character. I mean, she couldn't because she's in the South and she's, but she still held herself together with grace. Then the next testimony of the other witness, I believe his name was Willie. They tried to get him out of character, try to say what he didn't see and what he did see. And I love that he stood on his ground and said, no, I heard somebody being whipped. I heard it. He's Black. He know what that sound like. Why are you playing? And speaking of testimony, sorry, I skipped Uncle Mo's testimony during Manhunt, where he had to physically point out the gentleman that came to his house to get his nephew. Bravo, Glenn Turman. We said on Twitter, we're going to give you your flowers. He's been around for so long. He's done so much great work. I think this is his best work. I do. And I want you to get your flower. I want you to get a guest knob. I want you to get something for this work, because that is a very hard character to play. Because for one, you're going to be judged by the audience, because we're like, well, why'd you just give up your nephew? But you had to make the because it was either your kids, because they had the guns out, if it ain't, who's Emmett? If you don't tell us who Emmett is, we're going to take him. So it's either your kids or Emmett. And I think he really thought in real time that they'll bring him back. They didn't. They didn't. But he plays such a wonderful role in the scene between him and Mamie. And I felt like he had some guilt in his heart because of the situation. And when Mamie said, don't feel away about anything. You stood up for Emmett today. When you pointed those men out, you stood up for him. And I was like, you could just tell like his shoulders relaxed, like, oh. He had no other choice. And that's hard. That's hard to play. And Glenn Turman did such a wonderful job doing that. Bravo to you. Bravo. And I really hope you get your flowers and hardware as in awards for this. I think this is your best work. So let's get back to Mothers and Sons. We're going to talk about Miss Carolyn Bryant. Oh, Carolyn, you got on that stand, hand on the Bible, and you lied through your teeth. Yes, you did. I tweeted in real time, Carolyn Bryant, come outside. We just want to talk. You know we don't want to talk. You jerk. What? You lying? I'm trying to watch my mouth, case for the algorithms, but you are lying something. How dare you? You went through this whole thing, and then you kept calling him a man. That was another thing in the trial. They kept calling him a man. He was a boy. And now I get why, because it's easier to convict a man than a boy. If the jury constantly believes he's just this big black man who was being disrespectful to this meek white woman, they're going to convict. And she put this whole thing, she done went from a whistle to now he placed his hand on my hip. He was saying all these naughty things to me. Really, girl? Really, Carolyn? Rumor has it, Carolyn, you still around. You still around, Carolyn. Where you at, girl? You will not see heaven ever. You told a lie, a vicious lie to your crazy husband, and they murdered a 14-year-old boy. You will not see heaven, honey. You will never see heaven. I hope you live with that every day. You evil woman. You are so evil for that. And you knew it too, because when you sat down, you had your head down. You knew you lied. You disgusting liar. And poor Mamie has to get in the car and, talk and listen to this. And there's a beautiful close-up of Adrienne when she's hearing this testimony from this lying trick, Carolyn Bryant. And she's just got tears in her eyes. And I'm like, oh my God, Adrienne, you're so good, mama. Give the woman her Emmy now. But like, it was such a heartbreaking thing to be. I could only imagine sitting in that courtroom like, wait, what? So now my son's a monster. Now he wanted to rape you. He wanted to do all it. Really? Really? Okay. You won't see heaven, Carolyn. Ever. Ever. Poor Mamie. And then Mamie tells them, and I love this explanation of the whistle. As she said, if it did happen, it's because I told him to do that when he stutters, to find his words. I'm like, wow. So if it did happen, that's why. It wasn't at you, honey. He was not whistling at Miss Carolyn Bryant. And I'm going to keep saying her name because she is going to hell. Emmett was whistling. He was trying to find his words, y'all. And you took that as, oh my God, he was so disrespectful. And now I gotta go tell my crazy husband and they're gonna kill him. Wow. Wow. Mamie goes back to it wasn't a hotel, I believe it was a house. And she starts tearing some things up. And I don't blame you, Mamie. Because that rage in you, like, that ain't my son. I got to listen to these lies. We're the victim. But you going to stand up there and be the victim? Wow. Wherever he's, it's just like Rosewood, that lie that caused all those Black men and women to be slaughtered because of one lie. It constantly repeats itself in history. Today, we call those people Karens. Yep, that will lie on somebody saying I stole their phone in a store, or lying on, oh, he brushed past me. It's constant. It's constant. And it has bad intentions, and it can have bad consequences, because unfortunately, our young Black men end up dying because of a lie. History always repeats itself, and it's sad. It's so sad. So every time I see one of these videos of a Karen saying, oh, I think he stole my phone, and then she found it in her purse, that could have went bad. Cops could have been called, and we know what happens when that happens, when they interact with us. Stop it. Stop it. Seriously, stop with the lies. White women, stop it. Stop being Karens. It's not cool. Because it can have really bad effects on us. It's killing us. But y'all don't care. But in true Mamie fashion, she didn't buckle. She was this close to going home. But she stays. She stays. And I admired her for that, because I would have went home. Or I would have laid hands on Carolyn Bryant. And because she couldn't do that in Mississippi without getting beat or arrested, she stayed. She stayed. She walks in, and Ruby tells her, like, we thought you left. And she was like, I was this close, honey. And I love what she says. I hearken back to what you told me in the beginning. We always show up. Wow, that's powerful. We always show up. That's one thing I live my life by. Whoever, friends, family, I show up. Whoever you are, I show up. It's important to show up. And Mamie had to show up, not just for Emmett, but she showed up for the country. She did not run away from the adversity. She stood in it like the strong woman she is. So then we get the verdict. And of course, in the jury room, 2 people are on the fence. 10 are like, nah. But 2 people are on the fence. And then they sway him saying, well, what if it happened to your wife? Really? It didn't happen. Did anyone ever think in the jury room, what if she's lying? No. Because guess what? They don't lie, right? Why would she lie? That never even crossed their freaking minds. That, what if she's lying? Nobody asked that question. It was just, what if it happened to your wife? And then he thought long and hard, like, yeah. Wow, really? Okay. So they come back. And Mamie's not in the courtroom. They're on their way. And I'm kind of glad they weren't, because I didn't want to see that. She might have acted all the way out, rightfully so, but I don't know what would have happened. But they were on their way, and then they get it on the radio. And she's just disgusted, rightfully so. Like, you got all this evidence, you got witnesses, but y'all still acquit them. Wow. And then they do that press conference that's so disgusting. And Carolyn Bryant standing there like, I'm feeling good, knowing she didn't lie. And then they get arrested right outside for kidnapping. Now, this is the part of the story I didn't know at all. And thank you for this show, because I had no idea. Because I thought once it was done, it was done. But no, they were still up for kidnapping charges, as they confessed to doing in the beginning. They confessed to kidnapping this boy. So I was like, oh, this is it, right? Because in the last word, they have to use the sins of the father, basically, of Lewis Till and what he was accused of in the service. He was accused of rape and all these other, misconducts and things like that. So they're saying that, well, if he's accused of whistling, he's just like his dad. Really? Wow. And of course, that breaks Mamie's heart, as it should. Wow. So the jury doesn't indict based on that. They don't indict based on the sins of the father. Even though these two men they confessed in the beginning to kidnapping him. Even if they, quote unquote, let him go, they still kidnapped him. But because the sins of the father. Wow. They don't indict. That's another blow. So it's no justice for Mamie. No justice for the Till family at all. But she continues to go on. She's brokenhearted, of course. Very brokenhearted. And then we get to the laundry scene. And baby, when I tell you, if Tanya Pinkins and Adrienne Warren don't get some knobs for the Emmys for this scene alone, it was so many other ones, but this laundry scene was, to me, the Emmys saying, all right, we're gonna write that down right now. Yep. So next year, yep, nominated. It was so beautiful. One thing I did kind of laugh at, though, is when Alma comes in, Mamie breaks down because she finally grieves. I thought that was important. She finally grieved, finally. And it's crazy how the grief comes, because it comes like at a random time, like, oh, I'm just doing laundry, oh man. And she's on the floor and she's just, oh my God, just a mess. And Alma comes in and she's like, what's going on? She's like, he must have broke it before he left. And she's like, you ain't did laundry in Why do moms do that? You ain't did laundry in 2 months, Mamie? No. She like, no. I've been grieving my son. I'm out here making speeches. I'm out here being a civil rights activist. Yeah, laundry wasn't on there. And I'm like, mothers will always get a little read in there. Like, you ain't did laundry in 2 months? But Alma goes and fixes it. And I'm like, wow, look at that. And then puts it through. And they just have a moment on the floor. And Mamie says, I didn't want him to be a martyr. Ooh. That hit me here. Because that's what he was. And I never looked at him like that. I always just looked at him as a victim. Like, this was an unnecessary thing that happened, but he was a martyr. And it's unfortunate that she only got 14 years with him. But his death was the catalyst for this movement. It sucks. It's so heartbreaking because it didn't have to happen. But I like to think he didn't die in vain, because it did usher in a whole new movement. It really did. It made Mamie stronger, I believe. It made the family stronger. Made the world stronger. Black people stuck together, came together to mourn and to just be better people. And that's all because of Emmett Till. And then the next scene, I'm glad we didn't leave on that. In the next scene, Mamie is still dealing with this whole, like she says, they forgot. The world has moved on from my son. Wow. Wow. I always say that about a new police brutality or something like that. I'm like, let's not forget, because they say the average story, I think, changes in 11 days. Not the average story, but like social media time, like a new social media thing comes every 11 days. And I would always tell people at work, don't forget in 11 days that what happened to George Floyd or to Breonna Taylor, or to Sandra Bland, none of that. Every 11 days, don't, you know, and I felt that moment when she said, the world has moved on. No one cares anymore. And Ray Fisher, who played Gene Mobley brilliantly, was like, but you don't have to forget, type of thing. They haven't moved on, and neither will we. He was such a sweet man. And I loved one more thing about Black love. Through all of this, that man stood by Mamie. I think that's important to highlight, because sometimes in this day and age, the Black man leaves, or they can't handle it, or they're just not supportive. I don't know. But he stood by her through all of it, through the trial, through the, through him missing, through finding him, through the funeral, through the trial, through the speeches. And then finally, he's like, marry me. And Mamie said something so cute, was like, I can't handle your goodness right now. I'm like, yeah. But he's so sweet, and she's still grieving, but I'm glad that she finally just let him in and let him love her, because she needed it. After all of that, you just need a good man. And he's gorgeous. Like, girl, let him, honey. And she says, ask me again, and he does. And she says, yes. And I think they said they got married in 1957, and that's just beautiful. Mamie found love after all of this grief and tragedy. And I'm so glad for her, because that's hard. As a Black woman, it's like, I'm dealing with all of this. The last thing I'm thinking about is love, but I'm glad she still let him love her, because that's tough. That's tough. But she deserved it. She deserved love. We all do, right? So the last thing I want to say to the creator, Marissa, Adrian, Glenn, Tanya, Ray, Leslie, all of the cast, all of the crew, thank you. I believe, according to Adrian's Instagram, the show took 3 weeks to film. Thank you for going on that journey. Thank you for inspiring other artists like me to do work that matters. I hope your mental health is great. I don't know how you got through doing this show, because that was not easy to watch. So I could only imagine what y'all were going through for those weeks. But I know you guys had a great cast to just hold each other up during those rough times. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This show changed me. It educated me. It changed me. It inspired me to be a better person, to be a better advocate, and to also not have my own bias, because they judged that little boy off of nothing. And I can be a little judgmental at times too. Not to that extent, but just thank you guys. Thank you so much. And Adrian, I really do hope you're writing your Emmy speech, because honey, you're gonna get one next year. I just want you to be ready, just start writing it now. If you don't, we will be outside of the Emmys looking for explanation. We're gonna need something from them to let us know why. But just get ready, for real. Thank you so much. Thank you all for watching. This is my first review ever. So thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, if you loved it, if anything I can do better, if you want more, if you want less, just let me know in the comments. Hit the like button, share, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day. Bye.